I'm Arthur, and I'll be talking about the roles of artificial intelligence technology in our society. We're going to have 5 topics for this presentation. So the outline is looking like this. First, we're going to talk about history and definition of artificial intelligence. Then we're going to move on to morality and bias. Then we have the government's take on artificial intelligence, and then how artificial intelligence can prove itself useful. And then finally, we'll have our conclusion for this presentation. All right, history and definition of artificial intelligence. What is artificial intelligence? Well, AI is a field that matches computer science with huge data sets to enable problem solving. So you could say that is the reason why it was created, to solve problems. And most experts agree that AI is being created and developed today to help people solve problems that demand too much information and too much analysis. So AI is being created and developed today to solve these kind of problems. It was developed and created in 1950 by Alan Turing, who is considered the father of computer science. And he did the Turing test that consisted of a human interrogator who would ask questions out loud and he would get answers and he would have to decipher and he would have to guess if that answer was given by a computer or if that answer was given by a human person. Until a few years ago, this test was scrutinized, but it is considered to be the first test on artificial intelligence that we have in records. How does its future look like? Well, today we hear a lot about artificial intelligence, a lot from ChatGPT and how people have that much of artificial intelligence right in their computer, right in their personal devices. And that has made a huge jump with the ChatGPT technology, which basically is a question answer kind of platform where you ask a question and then the artificial intelligence will reply with data gathered from the internet. So it's an open source, it's free, it's available for everyone. It's the purest form of artificial intelligence that we have today. Obviously, it's still being tested, still being developed, and um, it will. People think that it will replace some jobs in the near future, and a lot of jobs in the long term. Um, about our future with artificial intelligence, some professors of the business school in the University of Utah agree that um, they agree that the accountant job or the bookkeeping job will soon be replaced by AI. They agree that not in 2 or 3 years, but certainly in the next 5 or 6 years, that these bookkeeping jobs will be completely replaced with AI. All right, moving on to morality and bias, we have the adaptation and reach of artificial intelligence technologies. That is a picture from the Verge um, of a 2018 accident caused by an Uber self-driving car, and that serves to prove that artificial intelligence is still in the developing stages. It is still very unknown, very unexplored, and these kind of accidents happen once in a while to remind us that we should be careful with it, that it's still not, it shouldn't be out in the field yet, so we should at least do more experiments with it. What is our goal with artificial intelligence technologies? Like I said before, the goal it is to solve problems for us. So while it is still in its developing stages and it's causing more harm than helping us, it shouldn't be out there in the field. Instead, it should be still being developed and still being tested. But the problem is We require urgency because cyber terrorists and hackers are using artificial intelligence, are taking advantage of it so they can steal money and steal information from governments and from private companies like Facebook or Instagram. So um, while they're using it, it requires us to use artificial intelligence as well to protect it, to protect our information and money. One way experts are tackling the bias problem and tackling these situations like that Uber, the self-driving Uber that caused that accident, is if we manage to do more testing, put more effort in the testing stages, and put more scenarios in the testing stages. For example, in that Uber scenario, the person was jaywalking, which is something illegal, but um, it shouldn't be ran over by an artificial intelligence self-driving car. So um, to tackle these kind of problems, these kind of accidents, it would be wise to test even the illegal cases like jaywalking in the early testing stages. Moving on to the government's take on artificial intelligence, we have the problems with the regulations imposed by the US government. The whole purpose for this image on the side is to show how confusing and how exhaustive it is to understand the regulations imposed on artificial intelligence and also in the surveillance made by the government. The problem that we have today is that the government today has a monopoly on information. It is the only body that is legal to have a lot of our information, and that allows hackers and cyber terrorists to steal that from the governments. A few speakers from TED Talk explain that while the government is making the mass surveillance and and keeping our information within its limits, it leaves a lot of breaches and a lot of backdoors where these kind of people, these hackers and cyber terrorists, they can use to exploit our own information. So um, while the government has that monopoly of information, um, people taking advantage of AI in an illegal way, they have the upper advantage. The U.S. Accountability Office, also known as GAO, releases reports very often with the purpose of letting the people know what the government is up to and what the government is doing, which is a matter of transparency. In these reports, the the major um, events reported by the government is how the artificial intelligence technologies are very unknown to them and how they cannot keep up with it. They have a lot of attacks coming from outside of the US with the use of artificial intelligence, but they cannot keep up with them for several reasons. One of them is a lack of coordination with private sector. That is a reason because most of the time these private companies have critical information to help the government to protect against these attacks, but the government insists of having the monopoly of information and it won't cooperate with the private sector. How artificial intelligence can prove itself useful. One of the ways artificial intelligence found itself useful to us is through the field of psychology, through the iWord net. The iWord net is basically a net or a web of all the words known to a person or an individual. And these words are linked and grouped by words that are similar in meaning. So in a small group of words, you would have you could possibly make out the exact meaning of a word just by that small group. A few researchers, like Mart and Monica Sheng, are trying to use these iWord nets to help to analyze the topological damage to an Alzheimer's patient or a person with a mathematics disability so it can be repaired. So how it would be used is they would see the damage and repair the damage using artificial intelligence. Obviously, artificial intelligence is still in its early development stages, and there's nothing very factual about it, but these researchers are still trying to develop and create ways to use artificial intelligence together with the Wrtg to help these patients and help these people with impairments so they can get back up to speed. And we also have to remind ourselves not to get ahead of ourselves in using artificial intelligence because with its advantages, there's also consequences. And a few consequences about artificial intelligence use is how, like I said before, there are people taking advantage of it to steal what's not theirs, to steal money and information. And there's also two very specific ways they do it is by using phishing emails and malware. Basically, in the phishing emails, experts have said that these emails um, that are used and computed by artificial intelligence are way more dangerous and eye-catching than those made by humans. And the malwares made by artificial intelligence can actually mutate themselves so they can pass by a lot of firewalls and programs that are made today that are meant to stop them. Some experts are recommending AI to be used not in its entirety, not to use AI to do human jobs 100% in their completion, but instead they're recommending them to use artificial intelligence in order to complement their jobs and their work. So instead of using artificial intelligence to complete all of the work all the time, it is recommended that people use artificial intelligence inside these huge companies, huge database companies, in manners that they do all the heavy lifting and they compute all the heavy databases and complete assignments that require a lot of um, analysis, a lot of time-consuming analysis, and the ones that have a lot of information, and leave the ones that require a human touch to humans themselves. Another way experts are recommending AI to be used is to let it keep running while the company is not online, or in other words, at night when people are not working inside the company, when people are at home, people can let artificial intelligence keep running and protecting their firewall because what artificial intelligence will do is detect any anomaly and report right back to its servers that will try to defend it against these attacks. All right, to finalize in conclusion, what we have is that artificial intelligence is still new and unexplored. Like we've discussed before, it is still in its early development stages and it should be taken very seriously and very carefully. Um, and a reminder not to get ahead of ourselves because accidents might happen and we might not get a second chance to fix them. The US government needs to give up mass surveillance, and what that means is that the government is not very efficient in the way that they apply these mass surveillance. And like we've discovered before, it is leaving a lot of breaches and a lot of backdoors for hackers and cyber terrorists to use them to infiltrate in the government's firewall and actually steal our information and money. Artificial intelligence is helpful in the psychology and cybersecurity fields. Again, researchers are still trying to develop ways to um, help people with impairments and help um, protecting firewalls inside these companies that um, keep and secure these huge databases. And there's need to be a consensus to make artificial intelligence more inclusive.